and welcome everybody to Flight Past, the podcast stream that uses Microsoft Flight Simulator to have a look at some of the most important historical moments from the air. And a big thank you to all of our new followers. I hope I can not let you down, and I hope that the expectations you have for the stream are met. And we've hit 10 subscribers, so we're a very small channel. So if you do enjoy the content, then please like and subscribe. Feel free to chat, give us a question, point out anything I get wrong, because I'm bound to get things wrong, and help it out in any way you can. If you see something that you think I need to mention, then do say. You can join in the discussion more on Discord, and I've put a link in the chat. So where are we now? Well, at the moment we're doing D-Day, and if you've followed along this far, you know that we've done the 6th Airborne, British 6th Airborne Division Operation Tonga, which is on the eastern flank of the invasion beaches, which was down in this area here. And we've also done looked at the US equivalent of that operation, which was Operation Albany, and Operation Boston, which was the 82nd and the it's the 101st Airborne and the 82nd Airborne drop on the Yucatan Peninsula here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and start looking at the actual beaches themselves, and we're going to work along in a chronological order as the landings occurred. And they occurred at slightly different times because the tide is coming in this way. And so the first beach landings were here at Utah, and then we'll go to Omaha and Gold and Juneau, and we'll finish at Sword, and we'll meet up back with the 6th Airborne at the end. For those of you who are new to the channel, the plan is that I will do these little series, put them into playlists, and this one is just on D-Day, so we're just looking at the first sort of 24 hours, but there will be a future playlist which will be done on the Normandy campaign. But I would, for people who just to let people know, expectation wise, I won't just be doing military stuff. There will be other subjects, anything that basically we can use this technology to tell a story, basically. So, but I do have plans to do things like the Napoleonic War, Waterloo, the Peninsular War. There'll be, I think, something on English Civil War, American Civil War, but also Falklands. I thought I would do stuff on football clubs, cricket clubs, rivers, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, let's start this one then. This is Utah Beach, and we're talking. Basically, this is the 4th Infantry Division's responsibility on D-Day. They came over in 1943 along with all the airborne, and we have seen all the training camps that the airborne used, and the 4th Infantry Division were trained, I think, at Fort Benning. And if you want to go back and look at some of the ones when we flew over that area, and please go back and have a look at some of the 82nd and 101st training areas. But we get to this decision by the Supreme Allied Expeditionary Force. So we're talking Eisenhower and Montgomery, when they got control, became commanders of this force, they had an initial plan that was for 3 divisions to land, and that was along this section of coast here. But they wanted to expand it, and they expanded it by adding Utah Beach and Omaha Beach, and that meant that there was, and this is all because they needed to capture this port here, which is Cherbourg, and it's a deep water port. So with the addition of Utah Beach, the plan was to cut off the Kotzebue Peninsula and deny the Germans the ability to reinforce Cherbourg. Okay, so let's dive in, and the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to start off in England, and they wanted to do an exercise, and that exercise was called Exercise Tiger. So I thought what we start off is we'll start off here in the Huey, which is Weymouth, and we'll get going, and we'll talk about things on the way. Okay, so this is Weymouth. This is one of the important ports used on D-Day. And we're going to fly, let's just fly over the town. It's a little peninsula that sticks out at the bottom of England. And this is Chesil Beach, you can see here. And you've got Purbeck, Portland Bill, and we've got a lot of Purbeck limestone quarries here. And we're going to fly out here now towards this area here, which is called Lyme Bay. So when we're talking, let me get the map. Right. There we go. Let me get the map up here. So when they decided that they needed to include the Kotzebue Peninsula as part of the invasion plan, they needed to keep the beach as close as possible to Omaha Beach so they could link up. And the problem with Utah Beach was that the Germans had basically opened up their lock gates and had flooded the area behind the beach. So what they wanted to do then is find an area on the south of England that was similar to that sort of scenario. And then if you think about where these ports are, you've got Weymouth, which we just left from, and most of the fleet that would take the troops into Utah would be coming from Plymouth, which is here. And so it made sense that if they could find something along this coastline between the two. And what they did was found this beach here, which is marked declassified, and this area here is called Slapton Sands. And it's got a shingle beach with a flooded lake behind, or area behind. And importantly, it was near to the ports of Weymouth and Plymouth. So this was the area of Slapton Sands was taken over in 1943, and it was designated a training ground. And they had to evacuate a bunch of villages there. And around about 3,000 local residents are evacuated from the area. Exercises, Tiger. I mean, it's a very long series of exercises. Basically, it starts in December 1943, and it was initially some exercises in order to practice embarkations and naval movements and get an idea of the scale of the operation. And but it culminated in a bunch of larger exercises around April and May 1944. And the main exercise that we're going to really be concentrating on was one that happened between 22nd of April and the 30th of April 1944. So the exercise, this exercise that happened at the end of April would have involved 30,000 troops reenacting a mock landing. It would include live firing exercise. Eisenhower insisted that live ammunition was used so that the troops would get used to the sounds of live ammunition, and they would be using these LSTs, these nine large tank landing ships during the exercise. Protection of the actual exercise area was conducted by 4 Royal Navy destroyers, supported by 3 motor torpedo boats and 2 motor gunboats, and they're mainly concerned with the threat from Cherbourg. Cherbourg had a flotilla of E-boats. They were like fast torpedo boats based at Cherbourg, and so the Royal Navy sent across these torpedo boats to put a net around Cherbourg to try to warn the exercise if any of these guys got out. So initially the exercise began with just a marshalling and embarkation drills. The ships would be leaving Plymouth or Weymouth, and they would basically simulate crossing the channel. So if you think about Plymouth, where it is. Where we are now, we're approaching this waypoint. If you imagine this, then where Slapton Sands is could be the base of the Cotterdam Peninsula, then these guys could come in from this point here, head south as if they're going down the Cotterdam Peninsula and then into the beach itself. This is simulating as if they're coming across from this area, which is it was called Piccadilly Circus. That was to the an area designated to the south of the Isle of Wight. So this is where they wanted to go. They want to get to this sort of area here. It's in this area is called Lyme Bay, and then they could head south. And now you can imagine that the land on the right-hand side is basically the Cotterdam Peninsula with the Utah Beach on the right. So mainly embarkation drills from the 22nd to the 25th, and then on the evening of the 26th they start to practice the actual invasion. So the first wave assault troops would get into the transports and set off and simulate crossing the channel, and they would go across Lyme Bay in order to arrive at Slapton Sands on the first light of the 27th of April. Let me just change the scroll. Let's get another one up whilst flying. So let's head south as if we were with the fleet. So the story of Exercise Tiger, history has, dictated that this has a tragic story. Basically, there's two major incidents that occur during this exercise, and the first one was basically a friendly fire incident. Eisenhower had insisted that live ammunition was used so that the troops would get used to the sights, sounds, smells, feel of a naval bombardment. And H-hour for this operation was set at 7:30, and what would happen is that Task Force U, they were the support elements for the operation, would commence a bombardment prior to the landing, about 15 minutes prior to the landing. What it was designed to do is that as these LSTs were turning west to head into the beach, so from the position custom 4, you can see on this map here, they'd have the task force behind them, and they'd be firing over their heads, so that they will get used to the sound of friendly fire coming over the top. Problem was, it was it's an exercise. Things started to go wrong. Some of the landing ships were delayed, and so what happened was that the American admiral who was in charge, who was Admiral Don Moon, he decides that because of the delay, then he will push back H hour by 60 minutes. So H hour now becomes 8:30 in the morning. But because of miscommunication, there wasn't standardized net. Some of the landing craft that had already embarked didn't get the message, and so they would go in on their original time. But of course, the naval bombardment had now been pushed back an hour. So what basically happens is, rather than them firing over their heads as they hit the beach, the naval bombardment is hitting the beach at the same time as the LSTs hit the beach. And this causes well, we're not sure how many casualties. It could be anything up to 450 casualties come from this naval bombardment alone. So the operation, or the exercise, has not started well, and things don't get any better. This was on the 27th of April, and on so in the evening of the 27th, 28th, I think the Germans either got a wind of it, they might even be able to hear the naval bombardment. They managed to sneak out of Cherbourg 9 German E-boats, and they departed just past midnight on the morning of the 28th. They managed to evade the Royal Navy motor torpedo boats and get into the English Channel. So they get across into this area where we are now, maybe slightly further over that way to the southeast. They managed to get into this area, and 6 of the E-boats, they were commanded by Bernard Klug. He makes out in the darkness. Remember, yeah, so it's sort of 1:30. He makes out the silhouettes of 8 ships, and he divides his 6 E-boats into 3, and they go off on an attack. Attack these boats. They send up a red flare. This is also notifies the other 3 E-boats, who was commanded by Freiherr von Merbach. He can see these red flares and join in the attack. Two of the E-boats during these maneuvers collide with each other, damage themselves, and decide to exit and go back. And they producing smoke as well to recover their retreat. So the 9 are now down to 7 of these German E-boats. And so they pushed through their attack on these boats. They're a little bit confused about the LSTs. They think they might be merchantmen. They're not sure. But they attack these this convoy. The convoy itself, it should have been protected. Only one of the ships that was supposed to be protecting it was there, and that was HMS Azalea, which is a corvette. And it wasn't leading the convoy in a zigzag formation. It was just leading it in a straight line. The other ship which was supposed to be with the convoy was HMS Scimitar, but that had received damage earlier when it had collided with an LST. So you can see the dangers involved in operating at night time for these guys. It also turned out that the LSTs, which were the Americans, didn't have British operating radio frequencies, and so the LSTs that were being attacked couldn't radio their protection. And the ship that was supposed to replace HMS Scimitar was HMS Saladin, and that hadn't arrived and caught up with the convoy at that point. So we're just flying along here. This is Devon. So as for the LSTs, there were so one of them was LST 289. This was set fire, but managed to make it back to shore, and it in the process it lost 13 US Navy personnel. LST 507 was torpedoed and sunk, and with a loss of 202 US Army and US Navy personnel. And LST 511 was damaged, and this was damaged because it got fired upon by LST 496, which was intending to fire on the E-boats, but the E-boat went between them, and 18 US Army and Navy personnel were injured in that exchange. And then LST 531 sank. This was one that was filled with Army and Navy personnel. Sank very quickly, sank within 6 minutes, and 424 men were lost. And the remaining LSTs managed to drive off the E-boat attack. So in all, there was 749 servicemen were killed. There was 551 from the Army and 198 from the Navy. So combining those casualties with the casualties of the friendly fire, possible friendly fire casualties, we're not sure. We could be looking at over 1,000 men died just in exercising for Operation Neptune and the landing at Utah. So these casualties are comparable to basically Omaha Beach in scale. Many of the people who died as well were drowned, obviously, but they all died from hypothermia. But the ones that drowned was quite a sad thing, because they hadn't been instructed or didn't know how to put on their life belt correctly. And what happened was they had a lot of equipment on, and they're trying to get this life belt on, and many of them put the life belt around their waist. And what happened was when they went into the water, they basically turned turtle. The weight was on the upper body, so they just flipped over, and then they couldn't right themselves correctly. Okay, so here we come. This is let's just do a low-level pass first into this beach. So we can see Slapton Sands here is on our right. So the LSDs would have come in, attacking this beach here. Obviously, when we go to Utah, you'll see that we don't have this height of land. So the first friendly fire, it was mainly on the second wave coming in. Got caught up in the artillery fire. But what this beach provided for the planners was the fact that they couldn't use this lake to get off the beach, so they had to use certain causeways to come off. So it simulated, as you can see here, there's a narrow stretch of road there coming off. So it simulated the impact of having probably to maneuver along a beach and find a causeway to get off. And so this is Slapton Sands here. One of the, I suppose, looking on the bright side of this exercise is that the Allies learnt a lot from it. They realised that these slow-moving LSTs were very susceptible to the German E-boats, and so they wanted to prioritise the sinking of these E-boats if they could prior to D-Day, whilst they were in a harbour. And so they argued with Admiral Ramsay the need to step up the bombardment of Cherbourg in the days preceding the actual invasion. And Vice Admiral Kirk is the guy who pushed for this, saying that it was a priority that these things had to be destroyed in the harbour before it got an opportunity to attack. The other Eisenhower was particularly upset because the convoy wasn't using proper evasion technique, and that had exacerbated the problem and allowed the U-boats to get in amongst them. The other issue was that there was believed to be at least 10 officers in those LSTs that were bigot level clearance. Now we spoke about bigot when we were talking about Major John Howard and at Pegasus Bridge, and these were the people who had basically got knowledge of the D-Day plans, and they got bigot clearance. 10 of these people were missing, and so Eisenhower was seriously considering at this point cancelling D-Day until they had confirmation that all 10 of these officers had been confirmed dead. And it turns out that all 10 are recovered at some point. These 10 officers were from the 1st Engineer Special Brigade, and they had specialist knowledge and knew where the Utah and Omaha beach landings were going to be. And they were also had knowledge of the Rangers' attack on the Point de Hoc. Though you could argue that, the Germans just had to sort of see this landscape that they're coming into to make their own quite quick judgment as to where they were likely to land, and so you could probably also argue that the Germans were just basically incompetent at this point. It is believed that, you see, at the time that the E-boats were actually nosing around in the wreckage, looking for any information they could. The shore battery at Salcombe Harbour, which is up, which gives us also a bit of a clue as to where these guys were. Salcombe is in this area, I believe, up here. But they were ordered not to fire on these E-boats because it will give away their position. So the other consequences of this exercise was that the radio frequencies were standardized between the Americans and the British. Better life jacket training was issued for the landing troops, and plans were also put in place for a series of small craft to be used to round up survivors in the water on D-Day. This exercise was, and the death toll from it was kept quiet. Lots of people were sworn to secrecy, and the news of it only were not released until way after D-Day in about August 1944. when there were hints that there was quite a few casualties. At the moment, down on the beach, you can see a Sherman DD tank, and that was brought up from the bay, and it was made into a memorial. Okay, so let's. That is Slapton Sands. So let's head over now. Let's have a little break. I will grab a glass of water, and we will come back and we'll talk about Utah Beach itself. And welcome back to the stream. Welcome to Flight Path. This is a second part of the chat on Utah Beach. Let me just update some of these locations for you. So we are going to head now to turn Peninsula. And the date is going to be the 6th of June. And let's change the scroll for you. Okay, so let's head... let's head to around about here. We could just fly straight away. So we know that the D-Day was delayed, and just before we start, I just wanted to show you these documents here. This here is the route that the fleets, the task force took. You can see that if you look at the smaller circle rather than the bigger circle just to the southeast of the Isle of Wight, this is was an area that was known as Piccadilly Circus. So the fleets would come in and merge in this area, organise themselves. They're coming in from Portsmouth, Southampton, around the Solent. They're coming along the coast from Dover. And they're also coming from Weymouth and Plymouth. And they're targeting this area. And from that area, south, as you can see in these lines, is where they mineswept the channel, and then these task force would go to their areas. So this is so where we are now. We just make sure we're not crashing. We're out now in the area, probably about 11 miles off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, on the western side of the invasion beaches. And these little islands we see up here are the Marcouf Island, San Marcouf, and these were important little islands. They used these to mark the beginning of the run into the beaches. So the Fleet Task Force O would be out here. They would do their embarkation probably around about 11 miles offshore to be out of range of the German artillery. And we saw, if anyone wants to go back, you can look at the some of the airborne landing videos. We discussed the Crisbeck battery, and that was one of the ones that could fire. They had the 210mm naval guns, so they could fire. Their range was almost like 17 miles. So they wanted to be sort of quite a long distance away from them. And then this is where the landing craft would get themselves organized, and then the run-in to the beaches would be from these islands that we see here and to the south of it. So the initial the beaches themselves were subjected to aerial and naval bombardment, and of all the beaches, actually the bombing of Utah Beach was one of the most successful in terms of at least shaking up the German soldiers, so that they, as soon as they could, either surrender or leave, they would. Like we said in the task, in the exercise Tiger, the naval bombardment began at 5:50 in the morning, and then there was. So this is when these guys are starting to come in. 6:30 was the H hour, so it was 40 odd minutes before these guys arrived. So they will be coming in from this sort of area here, heading into the beach. They'd have naval gunfire coming across now at the intended targets, and then they had an aerial bombardment as well, which was scheduled to bomb along the beach from around about 9 minutes past 6 in the morning to 27 minutes past 6. This is the plan. The amphibious landing was going to be done in 4 waves. The first wave was 20 landing craft, vehicle personnel. They would be carrying 4 companies from the 8th Infantry Regiment of the 4th Infantry Division. And of these 20 landing craft, 10 would land on what was known as Terre Green, which was the most northern sector, and the other sector was called Uncle Red, and that was to the south. The first sector was Terre Green, was coming in, or planned to come in, at a place called Les Dunes du Varaville. So we're heading in now to this into the beach. What I would do actually here is let's just jump out here, and we can then just see what they would have seen. So this is the view that you get from the water as you're coming in. As you can see, there is no real distinct feature, and you've also got to realize it's very early in the morning. It's also cloud cover. We know that it was cloud cover was to about 2,000 feet. It's around about a force 4, I believe, force 4 gusting 5. Waves were moderate, though the Cotterdam Peninsula gave protection as you got nearer, so the waves decreased as we got nearer. But further out to sea, you got a moderate sort of 1 meter swell, so it's not comfortable, and gusting 4 to 5. But with the naval bombardment that's happened as well, and the aerial bombardment, there was a smoke covering this shore. So these guys can't see anything. They're literally coming in probably blind, not knowing at all where they are. And combining on that, there was a current, and the current comes around the Cotterdam Peninsula. The tide comes in, it sweeps around the bay and drives and without them knowing, without any features, they couldn't know that they were actually drifting south from their intended target. So, of these 20 landing vehicles, 10 each on each sector, there was also 8 LCDs, landing craft tanks, that were carrying these DD tanks, they were amphibious tanks from the 7th Tank Battalion, and they were scheduled to arrive minutes just before the infantry, and then the second wave would come in. So the first wave was at 6:30, and the second wave was designed to come in about 5 minutes later at 6:35, and that would be 32 LCVPs carrying 4 more companies. So we're talking now 8 in total, companies of the 8th Infantry. And this would also carry in combat engineers and demolition teams that would begin to clear the beaches. And the third wave then was scheduled to come in 10 minutes later at 6:45, and that would consist of 8 more LCT tanks, but this carrying tanks, but also carrying armored bulldozers. They would actually land on the beach and push off our beach, clearing the any obstacles. And then the fourth wave would be pretty close to that, around about 6:47, and these would be more mechanized detachments from the combat engineer battalions, let's get on. So what actually happens? So the naval bombardment begins. What happens is that the first troops to reach the shore are 4 companies from the 2nd Battalion of the 8th Infantry, and they arrive at 6:30. They arrive. Companies B and C arrive at the beach that is codenamed Terre Green. But what they don't realise is they're not actually on Terre Green, and let's just get to the shore and we'll see where we come out and see if it compares with what happened to them. So we're approaching the beach now. And there we go. This is it. We're ashore. We've arrived. Okay. So let's just get orientated. Okay, so we've actually have arrived, I think, at what was the actual planned Terre Green. And this is this section here. I think this is the Dune de Varaville. Yeah, I believe so. You can sort of tell as well by the damage. You can see the some cratering going on. So this was this is evidence that it was targeted during that time. This road causeway that comes out here signified the dividing line between one of the beach's sectors and the other. So this was Terre Green, and then we had Uncle Red next to it. But what actually happens is that these guys are pushed further south, and they actually land here. And this is this sector here becomes Terre Green, and this sector here is now Uncle Red. So they've basically been pushed something in the region of a kilometre or so, a kilometre and a half from where they were designated to land. And they could recognise this because there was a house that had a red roof on it called Red Roof House, and they could see that that was something that should have been on their left was now on their right, and I believe that it is this house here. The Microsoft Flight Simulator just puts a generic house on it, but I believe it's one of these houses here. It could be this one here. It's probably the more likely. So they knew then that they were in the wrong area. Let's talk about. Let's have a little talk about get a bit more about the actual people. This is the emblem for the 4th Battalion, and this guy here. Let's talk about this guy here. This is on the day it's Captain Leonard Schroeder Jr. And he was 25 years old on the on D-Day, and he was the captain in charge of the 219 men of Company F of the 2nd Battalion, the 8th Infantry Regiment of the 4th Infantry Division. And he was basically the senior guy in charge, the first basically guy off the landing craft. He is a friend of Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt, to the point where Roosevelt, I think he had been injured or something prior to D-Day, and Roosevelt wanted to wish him well and wanted to get him back fit again because he wanted to ride with him to go ashore. So this guy is basically one of the first people to land on D-Day from the sea. He had 32 men in his boat, including Brigadier General Roosevelt. And they come ashore here. So he describes that he comes in, they drop the ramp. He has to jump into the water. He's carrying his carbine rifle above his head, and he has to wade approximately 100 meters in through the water to climb out. And then he runs across the beach. He's getting enemy fire from the pillboxes and some artillery shelling. Half of the men of his boat are injured, can become casualties. He himself is also shot twice in the arm. So Roosevelt's with this guy. They come out and they realize that they're in the wrong place. But standing on the dunes here, they quickly sort of quell any resistance at this point. And Roosevelt decides that this is as good as it's going to get. He determines that there's two strong points in the vicinity, but they've been severely damaged by shelling. And if we can see any evidence of the shelling. Get some hole marks here. Look, there's a few round craters in this area here. He just determines that that this is as good a point as any, and so he has this famous line that let's start the war from right here. And he then sends a message back to the fleet to order all the further landings to come in at this point. And this is Causeway, and I can't remember which exit it is, but this is one of the exits that comes off the beaches. I think it might be exit 4. Anyway, this comes off the beach, and as you remember from our previous discussion, this is where we know at this time the 101st Airborne are here. Major Horton and the 506th Regiment is in this village, Le Grand Chemin here. So they effectively have captured one end of this causeway already, or will do sooner or later. And as you can remember from previous episodes, this farm here is Breakout Manor, and this is where the artillery pieces are that Dick Winters assaulted. So second wave, these boats are now just all following each other in. Let's fly this back. Let's get back in the aircraft. Second wave comes in, and they're following the first wave. 32 LC VPs carrying Company A and D of the 1st Battalion, 8th Infantry, and they come in and land on Tear Green, and Company G and H land on Uncle Red. And these are the ones from the plan you remember are the ones carrying the 1st engineers and demolition teams, and say that they will begin to clear the mines and obstacles around that exit. The DD tanks that were supposed to arrive 10 minutes before the infantry had faced crosswinds and a headwind. They were, because of the nature of the sea at the time, they were brought closer into shore, so they actually launched from 1,500 yards rather than the planned 5,000 yards. But because of these headwinds, they actually arrived 20 minutes late. So our friend Schroeder didn't have tank support that he was expecting at the time. One of the LCTs of those tanks were hit a mine, so the 4 tanks of Company A of the 70th Tank Battalion were lost. And if we just pause here, they say that those tanks were lost three miles south of the of Saint Marcouf. So we're probably talking that these are the Marcouf Islands here. So somewhere in this area here was where the that LCT went down. Let's oh, by the way, this is Teddy Roosevelt Jr. quick side note: this is the guy. He wins the Medal of Honor. He actually dies. I think it's about 2 or 3 weeks into the Normandy campaign. He dies of a heart attack. He knew he also had at the time that he had heart trouble. So yeah. Documents wise, let's this is, whoa, no one told me I was flying into the ground. Let's change this scroll. I should keep up with all this sort of stuff. You guys have probably read all this. I've got this scroll going on the bottom just so that if I forget anything, I've got it. You guys can remind me. This area down here, by the way, was actually designated as Victor sector. I can't remember why and who was supposed to be landing there. This is the plan, or the map of what happened afterwards. And it shows the main egress onto the shore is from the south along that the new landing area, and they then you can see that they would push in and move along the beach from that the first point. So some would move across the causeway and then move to the north, and others would move up the line of the shore, taking out the other positions. But as we've seen from when we were talking about the 82nd and 101st, a lot of these troops pulled back towards Cherbourg, the Germans, and they like 200 or so ended up at the Azoville battery. And you can see the importance, and then you can see how this whole area here now in front of us where the stream's going across was flooded. There's a lock down the end which they allowed the sea to come into and flood this land. So if they didn't control this high ground, you can see the steeple there at Saint-Marie-de-Mont on the horizon. If they didn't control this area here, then the Germans can use this high ground or the steeple at Saint-Marie-de-Mont to put artillery observation onto the beach. And this is what happens a lot of the time from the Crispec battery and the Azoville battery. They can still fire on the beach and harass the offloading of the troops. So the 4th Division had to get their stuff, or not only hit the beach, but get off the beach, because it would be not only targeted and observed from places like up here, but also they would have already been zeroed in. So you can see from when flying low how important just this sort of slight ridge is here, and why the 101st needed to control basically this road that comes a lot parallel. This is Le Grand Chemin, and this is the road that Dick Winters came down from his landing site. So this whole road follows north. There we are. No need to panic. So yes, let's talk then third wave. Some conventional tanks arrive in at 6:45. They're the M4 Shermans, and the dozer tanks arrive as well. And then 6:47, a fourth wave arrives, and these bring the combat engineers, and they begin to clear the beach between the high water and the low water marks. Let's get back to the beach, and we can talk about Company B. They of the 2nd Battalion, 8th Infantry Regiment. They were receiving small arms fire and stuff from some of the houses on the beach, and they headed to WN7. I don't know if you can see that on that. They didn't get much resistance from WN7, and then they headed north west from there. Company C disabled WN6, I believe, or 5, sorry, at a place which is called La Grande Dune. But these things have been heavily damaged during the bombardment. This is, I think, Causeway 1 is what it was called, where they arrived, and they met pockets of resistance, but they quickly overcame it. And by 8:30, the area around the landing point had become secured, and then the combat teams began to prepare to cross the causeway to try to link up with the 101st. There's they moved along the beach and took out these things. So there's 3 causeways. Let's see if we can let's just pause here and we'll jump out quickly. So this one is one of the causeways. I can't remember which one it is. One. There is another one probably here. 2. And likely to be around here. This was the initial landing area that we were talking about on this side. And so these 3, at least 3 causeways, they started pushing along them and linking up with the 101st Airborne. And these causeways start to get congested because the waves of reinforcements are coming in, and it's important to get these guys off the beaches. And it turns out that pockets of Germans are trapped between the invasion and the 101st, and then a lot of these little pockets just surrender. The troops, we've discussed this before, they're quite poor quality. Ost Battalion generally tend to be manned by Polish, Russians, but with German NCOs and officers. But the reinforcements that are coming in are better quality. So back at Saint-Marie-de-Mont, the German Fallschirmjäger, I think is sorry about my German, but it's the 6th Parachute Regiment, basically, of the German 91st Infantry Division. They're based, or had moved up into the Karatan region, and they were one of the reasons why one of the drop zones was abandoned, because they had knowledge of their presence. And they were coming up to Saint-Marie-de-Mont. So they needed to get off the beaches, off the causeways, before these better quality troops arrived. And so by the end of the day, they've captured a number of they got all the way to Saint-Marie-de-Mont. The 4th Infantry Division meets all of their well, they didn't meet all of their objectives on D-Day because they had landed too far to the south, but they basically managed to achieve a secured beachhead. They suffered 197 casualties. So of all the beaches, this was by far the least number of casualties. And you could argue that the Slapton Sands casualties helped to reduce the casualties at this point. So on this side, then, just I might come back and do some individual stories involving this area. But just to wrap up this sort of Utah and the airborne section, the forces landing on Utah had basically secured the immediate area within an hour. By the close of D-Day, they penetrated basically 4 miles inland. So let's just recap here. So they arrive in this area here. They penetrate inland 4 miles. They've start sweeping up the beaches. They've captured all the sort of exits to the from the causeways. This dark green patch we see here, which was flooded. The 82nd Airborne have captured Saint-Mère-Église, which is this village here. So this is Saint-Merglis. The 82nd has captured that. The bridge at Lafayette is captured, which is this one. Wait. It's this one. Where are we looking at? This is here we are. Here. This is the bridge at Lafayette. This is captured, so it's protecting the western flank, the village to the north of Saint-Merglis. There's a platoon of troops that are denying 2 companies reinforcements from here. You've got the main villages along this road coming down this way has been secured by the 101st Airborne, and they've reached Saint-Marie de Mont, which is here, and they've managed or have begun to harass and try to secure the batteries at Azeville and Crisbec. This is Crisbec here. This does take about 4 days to fall, and this is where all the Germans are coming back to. And then there's another battery here at Azeville, which you can see here. So in a certain sense, yes, the Germans have managed to, or can still harass the beaches, but they're now doing it from a very big distance. The fleet out there are basically continuing harassing those batteries, and now the nature of the battle is to cross the Rotterdam Peninsula. So they will change these defensive positions along the Meerdere to a more aggressive offensive position and push across to the coast on the other side, cut off Cherbourg. And they will also push south, take Carentan, and then that would allow them to control the southern part of the Rotterdam Peninsula, enables them to then link up with Omaha, and once Cherbourg is captured, they can then, using the British at Caen as the hinge for the door, eventually fight their way through this bocage and out onto more open ground, sweeping around to the south and trying to encircle the Germans at the Falaise with Patton sweeping around, taking the Brittany section. But that is for the future, but that gives us a whole sort of overview of what's happened. So that's I hope that you guys have enjoyed that, and if you did, then please pop a like for an old chap, and give us a subscribe. I just we appreciate it if anyone was listening, really. This completes this section of D-Day, and so next week we will start to look at Omaha, and we will see a much. We'll have a look at the terrain of Omaha. We'll be able to recognize some of the difficulties that the terrain gave to the attacking forces. You can just really see straight away that the land gives the defenders an advantage along this piece of coastline. And so we will look at how this part of D-Day fares, and we can look at I haven't decided how I'm going to discuss this. I might just try and follow one unit, but if anyone's got any ideas how this story is best told on Omaha, then let me know in the comments below, or you can go to the Discord link, which is in the chat, and add any information you want. But that is in the future, and we will do that next week. So yes, hopefully I will see you all again soon. Goodbye.